to first sign HB 21-1004, the Colorado Uniform Electronic Wills Act. And I want to thank Representative Snyder, Representative Soper, Senator Gardner, and Senator Lee. I think we have Representative Snyder, Representative Soper, and Senator Lee with us. Real briefly, this bill very simply permits the use of electronic wills, specifically the process for executing an electronic will, revoking an electronic will, and simultaneously attesting to an electronic will and making it self-proving. I want to thank the sponsors for the work on this bill. You know, this pandemic has affected really every aspect of how we live, including how we plan for our own passing and how we take care of our loved ones after they're gone. And I want to thank the stakeholders who are with us today. In addition to the sponsors, we have Andy White from the Colorado Bar Association. We have Boulder County Commissioner Claire Levy and members of the e-Wills Subcommittee, Letty Maxfield, Herb Tucker, Stan Kent, John Valentine, and Steve Brainerd. There's, nothing is harder than losing a loved one. And this year, too many families have had to do so. But if we can make that process a little easier, especially for those who, might be contagious and can't be around others, we should. And that's exactly what this bill does. The bill uses technology, allows electronic wills, and streamlines the process of executing a will. It can save money and increase convenience for families. And it's my honor to turn it over to Representative Snyder.
Thank you, Governor Polis. I very much appreciate that. And it was really a pleasure and an honor to bring this bill in the first 3 days of session. As you pointed out, it's really needed now in this time of COVID and keeping people separated as much as possible. But the real credit belongs to first the Uniform Law Commission and their model e-Wills Act. Thank you to Senator Gardner and Kerry Tipper for serving for Colorado on the Uniform Law Commission. And especially I want to thank Letty Maxfield and Stan Kent, who were the two that testified in our House committee hearing. It's really those folks and all of their colleagues in the probate and the wills section, the elder law section, who really did the hard work of getting the Uniform Law Act seamlessly into our Colorado statutes and regulations. So it was an 11-month process. We had a wonderful stakeholders involved, and we came up with, I think, a really excellent product. So thank you to all who put in so much time and effort into this. And thank you again, Governor Polis, for signing this bill today.
Thank you, Representative Soper.
Thank you, Governor, and thank you very much for signing this bill today. It's actually very fitting that you're hosting the bill signing virtually, since you're actually emulating very much what the bill calls for the signing of electronic wills. So I think that's very appropriate. I just want to expound a little bit more on the thank yous. I want to thank Representative Snyder and certainly the Uniform Law Commission. They made this a super easy bill for us as legislators to work on. It's the type of bill that you really like. It's bipartisan, it's East Slope, West Slope, and it passed the legislature with unanimous support. And I think that's exactly what Coloradans like to see coming out of the General Assembly. But it's also one of those bills that has both short-term and long-term effects that are great for Colorado. I mean, in the short term, it deals with the pandemic. It allows people to execute their wills remotely. In the long term, Americans are moving more towards electronics and doing things remotely. As one of the witnesses testified to during the signing, Coloradans actually prefer doing more things paperless, and that's what this bill also does. It allows us to engage in our daily lives without necessarily running here and running there to get a signature. So thank you once again, Governor, and appreciate you signing this bill.
Thank you, Representative Soper. I believe we have Senator Lee with us as well. Senator?
Thank you, Governor, and my colleagues, I think, have covered the field in describing the virtues and benefits of this bill and the process that leads it to signing on your desk. This is a textbook example of how bipartisanship and practical bill making works in Colorado, bringing all the stakeholders together. Particular credit goes to the Bar Association and the members of the wills, estates, and probate section of the bar for bringing their expertise to tell us how these things ought to be done, and certainly to the Uniform Law Commission, which I think Representative Levy was on or has been on in years gone by. She was Judiciary Chair when I first came to the legislature as a rookie, and most of what I know I learned from Representative Levy about how to make good law collaboratively working across the aisle. So commendations to all who worked on this bill to bring forth good legislation that is appropriately signed amidst pandemic to enable people to execute wills in times of need. So thank you, Governor, for putting your signature on this thing and improving the lives of Coloradans.
Thank you, Senator Lee. Do we have any of our advocates that want to speak about this bill? If we have Andy or Claire or Stan, do any of you care to say any words?
Yes, Governor. Thank you for the opportunity. And good morning, everyone. I'm Andy White. I'm the Legislative Director for the Colorado Bar Association. And again, Governor Polis, on behalf of our 18,000 attorney members and legal professional members, I want to thank you for your support and signature of HB 1004. As you mentioned, the bill will give Coloradans the ability to execute their wills remotely, electronically, and securely. And I just want to express our thanks as well to the sponsors, Representatives Snyder and Soper, Senators Gardner and Lee, for shepherding this bill so quickly through the legislature last week. And as mentioned before, but I also want to just acknowledge those who were instrumental in developing the bill as well, specifically the Colorado Commission on Uniform State Law and its chair, Claire Levy. And I also want to express my sincere appreciation for our volunteer members who worked over the past year to develop the bill. And from the Uniform Law Commission Model Act, Herb Tucker and Letty Maxfield co-chaired that work group and shepherded their work and the countless hours to develop the bill. And so thank you for their work. And last, I just want to acknowledge and introduce Stan Kent. Stan is a member of the CBA subcommittee that developed the bill. He's also a former commissioner to the Uniform Law Commission, the national organization that developed the Model Act on which HB 1004 is based. So I'll turn over to Stan to comment on the bill's significance and timeliness. But again, thank you to all involved. I much appreciated.
Good morning, Governor Polis. I'm Stan Kent. I really can't add to what's been said already by yourself and by Representative Snyder, Soper, and Senator Lee. I will, without getting too far into the weeds, just point out that this bill, which is good law, essentially does three things. The formalities for a valid will are, as we know, a writing that's got to be signed by the testator, the person that makes the will, and signed by two attesting witnesses. What this bill does is relax those formalities in this modern age and in this era of the pandemic so that the writing can be simply in electronic format, provided that the writing is readable as text when it's signed by the testator. And regarding signing, the signatures can be made electronically provided, and this is important. In Colorado, these signings must be electronic images of the testators and the witnesses' actual signatures. And those must be affixed to the electronic will. And most important of all, Governor, this bill preserves the robust body of Colorado law governing the validity, the enforceability, and the interpretation of wills. These important rules now will apply to electronic wills. The bill also, of course, dovetails nicely with our Colorado law on remote notarization. And with that, I would certainly answer any questions you might have, but I really appreciate what you're doing today, Governor Polis. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Levy, did you want to add anything to this?
Thank you, Governor. I would like to just make a couple of quick comments here and really just to put in a plug for the work of the Uniform Law Commission. As I think Stan Kent may have mentioned, or to Andy White, that I am the chair of that commission. I think I'm entering my 14th year. But I think this bill passing unanimously and so quickly really is a plug for the work of the commission. We don't do these things quickly. We have a very long and painstaking process that makes sure that the work of the commission is vetted by experts such as Stan Kent and Letty Maxwell, Steve Brainerd, the other experts that are here on this call. And the work of the commission addresses really valuable, pressing needs in our economy. So this process, the drafting process, actually began many years ago when the pandemic wasn't on the radar screen. But I just wanted to put a plug in for the really valuable, important, and painstaking work that the commission does.
Thank you, and it's great to see that work come to culmination. And without further ado, we are going to sign the bill. And it's now officially the law of the state of Colorado. Congratulations. Our next bill is the Occupational Therapy Practice Act, and I want to thank Representative Ortiz, Representative Larson, Senator Fields, and Senator Holbert for their work on this. I know that many occupational therapists across the state have been eagerly awaiting for this day. And this is the ongoing authorization. It recreates the Occupational Therapy Practice Act, which repealed late last year when legislative work was paused because of the pandemic. It's critical for over 1,200 occupational therapists in our state. And I know that people were eager to get it through in the early session because there was a lapse in it, and this will end that lapse and allow the field to continue the very important work they do, helping people recover. I also want to thank the State Occupational Therapy Association, Kathy Otis and Steve Basarovich. Pam DePasquale, who's joined us today, is the former president of the Occupational Therapy Association. Do we have Senator Holbert with us? Senator?
Yes, Governor, thank you so much. It was a unique experience for me. I filled in for Senator Cook last fall on the Committee on Legal Services and became more familiar with the scenario of the bill last year and how it actually didn't become law, even though both chambers passed it and the governor signed it into law. I think it was frustrating for we legislators, and I know it was frustrating for occupational therapists that Legislative Legal Services couldn't solve that problem that day. I was also happy to be a prime sponsor with Senator Fields during the special session, and it was equally frustrating to see that that bill didn't fit within the governor's call. Though I voted no at least once on the bill last year, I was happy to carry it this year because the process failed occupational therapists. And they were in a very awkward position of offering services that were authorized by law, new services by new law, and suddenly that new law wasn't actually there. So to the occupational therapists, to Kathy and Steve, thank you for your patience. I'm sorry that we weren't able to get this solved sooner, but I'm proud to be here to make sure that the process is successful. And Governor, thank you for signing this a second time in one calendar year. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Senator. I guess the second time's the charm in this case. Senator Fields.
Governor and all the folks who are on this call, I want to thank the governor for signing this bill today and making this act functional for occupational therapists. Because when I think about the role that they play, helping people to achieve their fullest ability to regain whatever illness or disability or accidents they may have encountered, their work is so very important, especially during this healthcare crisis, because hospital beds are in high demand. And as you know, a lot of times the hospital will send someone to get occupational therapy either at home or at another facility because they need to know how to do certain things that maybe their illnesses they haven't achieved that level. So I just want to thank everyone who was a part of this bill, especially my co-prime sponsor in the Senate. It's always a joy to work with you, Minority Leader Holbert. Thank you for your support, your advocacy, and for the advocates. And I just want you guys to know, the occupational therapists, the compassionate role that you play is so very important because you see people at their weakest, when they lack confidence in their ability to walk again, or if they're not able to lift their arm again. You give them that confidence and you restore them to the fullest ability of their capability. So thank you, Governor, and thank you all for making sure that we made this bill now the law.
Thank you. And I believe we're joined by Representative Ortiz as well. Representative Ortiz.
Governor, thank you so much. And I want to thank the senators and Rep. Larson for
By the way, this is Representative Ortiz's first bill that I'm signing here. So congratulations, Representative Ortiz.
Yay!
Thank you all. Yeah, it's an honor to be on this bill. I mean, as Senator Fields alluded to, unless you have a family member or go through it yourself, you don't understand how critical a role that occupational therapists play. PTs will, be there for the short term to help you get as much mechanical function back. OTs will help you regain your independence or help you redefine what's possible in your life. And I was honored for this to be my first bill, since I know OTs have played a very special role in my life. You don't go from being a combat aviator running 5-minute miles to not being able to sit up in bed under your own power to then being a lobbyist for veterans and then now being a representative for your district without the important work of occupational therapists. So to them, I want to say thank you for everything you do. It was an honor to be a part of this bill, and I'm glad it was my first one. So thank you.
Congratulations, Representative Ortiz. I also want to thank Representative Larson, who's unable to join us today. We are joined by Pam DePasquale, the past president of the Occupational Therapy Association. Pam?
Occupational therapy practitioners of the state.
You're a little soft, Pam. If you could speak up, that would be great.
Oh, I'm holding my phone and doing this at the same time. So, can you hear me better now?
Yes, go ahead.
On behalf of all occupational therapy practitioners of the state, I would like to say thank you. Thank you for the passage of Senate Bill 21003. The swift passage of this bill represents something deeply personal on the part of many occupational therapists and occupational therapy assistants. This law, now enacted, serves to validate our profession. It took many attempts since the 1980s to obtain licensure in Colorado. After repeated failures, we were first trademarked in 2002, registered in 2008, and finally licensed in 2013. The intent of this legislative effort was to continue our Practice Act. It did stumble through with much effort. However, what this bill did was it forced us to acknowledge that in Colorado, that Colorado actually values our profession, from the governor's office, the attorney general, the legislators, and the Department of Regulatory Agencies. We can now be assured that Colorado recognizes our unique contribution to healthcare to its citizens. It is of high credibility that this bill passed unopposed, unanimously, and bipartisan. We are thankful and appreciate the recognition of our value to Colorado.
Thank you. So without further ado, we're going to make this the law of Colorado.
Yay.
Here we go.
That's exciting.
It's now official. Congratulations. The occupational therapists are back, Pam. Congratulations. Okay. Our final bill that we'll be signing here today, a very, very exciting one, which I'm honored to sign, and want to thank Representative Weissman, Representative Sirota, Senator Moreno, Senator Hansen. This bill creates a state income tax deduction to make sure that we don't lose any of the tax advantages of the CARES Act. It allows taxpayers to carry back federal income tax deductions under the CARES Act to access a corresponding state income tax benefit for 2021 as well as future years. It also broadens the eligibility for the state earned income tax credit. So I want to thank those who worked on this bill. It's really been an incredibly challenging year for Coloradans, and we want to make sure every Coloradan gets every tax break that they are entitled to, particularly in this year and certainly every year. This is a really important tax cut for folks that might not have otherwise been able to take advantage of the corresponding state aspect of the CARES Act. tax breaks. And look, this is a year where we're working together to do everything we can to support Coloradans in this pandemic. And this bill is another way to provide relief. It also ensures that all filers can take the enhanced earned income tax credit benefit established in law last year, and people can carry over deductions from the CARES Act into the state income tax benefits so they pay less in taxes. Means more money in people's pockets to put food on the table, pay their rent, support their small business, pay the bills. We know the economic impact of this pandemic will be felt long after the public health impact, and this bill is an important step in making sure that Coloradans are able to get the corresponding opportunity to participate in some of the tax cuts in the CARES Act. With that, I'm proud to turn it over to Representative Weissman.
Okay, thank you, Governor, for organizing this signing ceremony for this legislation. I'm glad we were able to invite some of the advocates who participated in it and then were able to join us today. I'll be really brief. I mean, to me, this bill comes down to one thing. It's to make sure that taxpayers of all sorts are able to claim the deductions in the amounts that we intended in the years that we intended and subject to whatever limits or not we intended in the original discussion that the legislature had in 1420. A little bit of an unusual circumstance where we found out after that bill was signed that we needed to do some clarifying work, but I think it's important that we do the clarifying work and hold to our original intent, particularly where the timing issue is concerned for taxpayer identification number. Filers who we know are folks who work and pay into the system the same that anybody else does, and are some of the folks most struggling in the pandemic, as you alluded to. So again, thank you. We look forward to working more on tax policy in the future.
Thank you, and we very much look forward to working with you on a fair tax code for Colorado. And I think that this is a good common sense first step that keeps with the original intent of the legislature. Representative Sirota?
Thank you very much, Governor. I, too, am grateful for the opportunity to celebrate this bill getting signed into law. In particular, the aspect of ensuring that while we are experiencing a K-shaped recovery, we know that there are some Coloradans who are hurting much more than others right now, and extending the state earned income tax credit to all taxpayers, including those who file their taxes with an ITIN, will be able to achieve some kind of economic relief now. I'm very grateful for that opportunity. So thank you to everyone who worked very, very hard to collaborate on this legislation, and for you, Governor, in signing it and getting it over to the finish line.
We also want to thank Senator Hansen, who is in JBC meetings now, unable to join us. I think we are joined by Carol Hedges and Rick Sapkin. And I also want to acknowledge that Carol has announced her retirement, and I want to thank her for her years of advocacy. And Carol, would you like to say a few words?
The best wishes on the retirement. I'm looking forward to continuing to be part of the community for fighting for fairer taxes, but just from a slightly different perspective, closer to a travel trailer if I have my choices about it. I want to thank you so much, and the legislative sponsors and champions, for prioritizing House Bill 1002 here in 2021, as well as prioritizing House Bill 1420 during the 2020 legislative session. 1002 clarifies that all Colorado taxpayers who have earned the state earned income tax credit will be eligible to receive it for 2020. And what that means is that more taxpayers will have more money to spend in communities across the state, and will have more resources to help their families make ends meet. I'm so proud that Colorado was the first state in the country to provide state EITC benefits to taxpayers that file their taxes using an individual tax identification number. In Colorado, that's a group of nearly 50,000 taxpayers, primarily immigrants, that have been excluded from the benefits of this tax credit, and who have largely been left out of most targeted economic relief during the COVID pandemic. The EITC has produced amazing outcomes for kids and families, increasing long-term earnings, improving health and education outcomes, and providing more dollars flowing through local economies. Thanks again to all who contributed to the passage of 1002, and I want to give a particular shout out to our colleagues at the Colorado People's Alliance, who were really important, along with everybody else in the coalition that fought for 1420 and now for 1002. We know that it is an important tool for combating the COVID pandemic, helping families make ends meet and stimulating community economies across Colorado. Finally, and really importantly, Governor, if I can have one more minute, I want to provide information about a resource for folks who are eligible for the EITC. Anybody who is eligible or thinks they might be eligible for the Earned Income Tax Credit should visit taxhelpco.org. Let me repeat that, taxhelpco.org, to connect with tax professionals that can help prepare taxes at no cost. This is an incredibly valuable asset provided through the Piton Foundation and Gary Community Investments, and it's a way to help people get access to these really important benefits. Thank you again, Governor and legislative sponsors.
Thank you. Rick Sapkin, would you like to say a few words?
Oh, sure, Governor. Thank you. Perfect example of how business is able to work with the state and the legislature to find a common ground to make what you've always said, which is good common sense tax policies. So I just want to thank everyone. Also want to point out Kerry Kennedy was very involved. And while the nuances of these bills and the unintended consequences sometimes aren't apparent, they were able to find what they were, work out the issues, and get to the true intent. And I think that's what it's all about. And a lot of that is due to your leadership. So thank you.
And I also want to say we certainly look forward on working on additional earned income tax credit opportunities this next session with Representative Sirota and Representative Weissman. We're very excited. I think this is the start of something very good, and making sure people who are eligible can get it. And we're going to make this bill the law of Colorado, and I appreciate the legislature making this a priority during the brief early part of the session so that people don't lose out on tax advantages under CARES. Thank you all for being part of a very successful 3-day session with important bills. There's several I've signed administratively as well. Thank you all for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you, Governor.